All right, guys. So today I'm going to be going over how to build a scalable sales team. So a lot of people have been asking me about this, like, what's the secret? What's the ins and outs of actually building a sales team that's scalable, that's a machine, that's not just like a team that you have to manage all the time. So the secret is just right off the gate here, you have to have people in leadership that you trust. So that would probably be the first biggest thing. Like you're not going to scale a sales team with just you and your homie who want to get some closers. Like you actually have to have people in place who have a compensation plan built off of the success of the team. So when you win, they win. When they win, you win. So it's kind of like an ever-going wheel. So let's get into it right now. The premise. So basically, here's the deal. Most people don't have a sales team. They have a few guys taking calls, and that's not a machine at all. That's a gamble. Although I don't mind gambling sometimes, this is definitely not the type of gambling you should be doing. So today I'm going to walk you through the exact framework I use to go from being broke to building and leading a $27 million sales team. It's the same playbook that I would run again today if I had to start from scratch. So we first have to identify the problem. Okay, let me move myself over here. Boom. Let's first start with what most people get wrong. The founder is usually the sales team. I say founder, the business owner. You are probably your sales team right now. Or you're hiring closers and pray that they don't suck. No system, no training, no tracking, no leadership, just hoping it goes right with no certainty. So what happens? Revenue is inconsistent. You don't know what's working, and even worse, you don't know what's not working. And if your number one superstar, like your best closer, if he quits, the whole thing is going to break. You're going to stop making money, and the whole thing is going to just break in half. That's not scale. That's barely surviving. So that's what you want to avoid at all cost. Everyone has been a slave to an employee before. If you're a business owner, you have felt like one of your best employees is just like the guy, and you don't want to lose him. You've been afraid to lose the guy, but at the end of the day, your business cannot like be stuck behind somebody. You have to be good with or without your best employees. And the only way to do that is to have a solid system. So let's move forward. You have to have the four pillars. If you want to build a real sales machine, there are four things that you must have locked in. The first thing is the offer. You have to have a clear offer, simple, valuable, and easy to say yes to. Something that actually solves a real problem. You can't sell just made up stuff. Like you have to be able to make huge claims. You have to be able to solve the problem with so much certainty that it makes no sense to not buy. The next thing you need, number two, is infrastructure. So you're going to need automations. You're going to need a really good CRM, a pipeline, which is inside the CRM, data, which is a very vague statement, but like basically you need to know where you're at all times. You need to have key performance indicators, KPIs, so you're not driving blind. If you don't have KPIs in your business, you're literally driving down the highway with a blindfold and you're hoping it's working out. So you don't want to do that. Number three, you need people and processes. So you need your reps to be trained up. You need them following a proven system, setting up strong standard operating procedures, SOPs, and making sure that they are being followed. So that comes to leadership. Your leadership is the people who are going to make sure that your SOPs are being followed. The leadership layer, number four. Someone driving performance daily and someone that you can fully trust 100%. Basically, your leadership layer needs to be people that you can trust with your money, with your business, and with your livelihood. Like it needs to be 100%, no questions asked. Without all four, you don't have a machine, you have a mess. So you don't want to be in that position. The next thing is the machine framework. So here's the actual flow of a scalable sales system. Here's step one, traffic. So you have your paid and organic traffic. You generate attention. So, however you do that with ads, some people just have a really big following and they do CTAs, whatever you got to do. The second thing is lead intake. So once you do a CTA, a call to action, You need to be able to intake the information. So that's funnels, that's calendars, and that's pre-sale flows. Number 3, you need a sales engine, so a proven script. So when in doubt, people follow the script. A lot of people do the script list selling, which is good if you actually have really good salespeople. But let's just be honest, 8 out of 10 salespeople that you hire are not going to be pros. So you're going to need a good script, or at least the bones, like the good script. And then a qualifying system. You need to make sure that when your setters reach out and they're qualifying your leads, they're not filling up your closers with some garbage leads, like some terrible unqualified leads. They need to be very qualified. They need to have hard questions. They need to know why they would buy. They need to know all the pain on the set call so they can give it to the closer in the notes. And then, of course, the closer's job is to handle objections. And then the whole time, like with your sales engine, you need to think with precision. That's what you need to think with. How do I minimize wasting time and maximize results? Step 4, the follow-up machine. This is probably the number one thing that's overlooked in all sales teams. Most deals close in the follow-up. That is for sure, no questions asked. A lot of businesses fail at the follow-up. But this is where about 60% of all deals are closed. So do not sleep on the follow-up. What that looks like is if you have a good CRM, you have email campaigns, like follow-up campaigns after you mark a lead as like follow-up or appointment set or whatever, or even training your salespeople, your setters or your closers to just follow up if they feel like it's a deal. If they know it's a deal but they're just not buying now, you just have to follow up constantly. Stay in front of them. And then step 5, management and metrics. So without leadership and numbers, everything dies. There must be somebody holding the team accountable for hitting numbers and metrics. So each step is literally built on the last. It's a machine. The goal is that it runs whether you're there or whether you're not there. That is the difference between a business or a sales team and a machine. You need it to be a machine that's ready to roll. Obviously, like, you do need to be involved. Like, the team needs to know that you're the owner and you need to like set the direction and set the tone for your leadership team and stuff like that. But you should not be like all in the mix of getting every little detail done. That's why you're a business owner and you're not an employee. You want freedom. You built a business to create freedom, not to create a job. So, moving along. Metrics that matter. So, money is a lagging indicator. It's a lagging metric. It's the scoreboard. If you want to drive growth, you need to track what actually causes growth. So here's what I track daily. How many appointments are set? So you have to put the heat on your setters. Like, how much outflow are they doing? How many calls per day? How much talk time per day? And then for your closers, how much cash collected per day? How much training is everyone, setters and closers, doing every single day? And if you don't track it, you can't fix it. So most of the time, whenever I would run into a sales rep that just wasn't producing, I would just look at their metrics. Like, I would realize that their outflow was down, so their pipeline was dry, or their training was low, so they weren't really like on their A game 24/7, because it only takes like 8 hours to get rusty as a salesperson. So you have to constantly be training. So we can get into that a little bit later. So the next is the people strategy. You have to hire the right people. So hiring correctly is half the battle. I do not look for experience at all. I look for obsession. I want hungry, coachable killers who want to win more than anything else. I knew I could train in-house because it's frequency before greatness. That was a line that was taught to me when I was a brand new salesperson, before I was a sales manager, before I was a sales leader, and before I was a business owner. When I was a green salesperson, I was told frequency before greatness. So that's something you just have to know and you have to live by. So obviously there's commission tiers, there's incentives, there's paid performance, and there's leaderboards. So if you want results in your sales team and in your business, you need to gamify it. Believe it or not, I hated it as a sales rep, but it was motivating having a competition of like, dude, who's the best salesperson? Who's the best closer? And then as you get better and better, you just become the man and you're dominating and you're playing your game as a salesperson. And then the business owner is looking at how much cash you're collecting and he's all happy. So you need to gamify it. And then we'll go over the leadership layer right now. So most sales teams fail because no one actually is leading them. You can't scale if you're not in full control. So I place a sales manager, someone who owns the outcome no matter what, good or bad. What that means is somebody who's responsible, somebody who's not a victim to circumstance. So whenever half the sales team is sick because there's some sickness going around, and you ask the sales manager, why are numbers like missing? Like, why are we missing so much production? The sales manager, if he just responds, oh, well, everyone's out sick, that's not the guy. You need the guy who's willing to do more and outproduce the problems. So their job is daily meetings, weekly reviews, enforcing your SOPs, the standard operating procedures, role plays, training, key metrics, and then most importantly, the culture. Your sales team has to be so sold on you and your mission and your product or service, because only how much they're sold is how much they will sell. If they're not sold on your stuff, they're not going to sell your stuff. So the good way to think about it is no tourists, no coasting. You're either producing or you're out. There's no in between. So you dominate with precision. Once the machine is stable, the goal isn't just to scale, it's to dominate with precision. So you need to compress the sales cycle. So one thing I used to like hammer my guys on is not taking 45 minutes or an hour to close a deal. It should literally take a closer, depending on your product or service or what your systems are. It should take your closer, once they get good at what they're doing, half the time, not even half the time of what other closers that are new taking to close the deal. So I used to crack my guys. They would take 45 minutes to close a deal, and then I would compress it to like 15 minutes. And we'd still get the deal and the upsell, because the longer they're just with one client, the less time they can give the next client. So as you compress the sales cycle without giving up quality, you can do more and more and more. So cut time to close in half, faster closes, and increase daily call volume without sacrificing quality. That's a big thing. And then you have to duplicate your top reps. You have to clone top performers with recordings, scripts, and frameworks, because your top performers are doing something right. They figured out something that's working. All you have to do is duplicate that. And then control the pipeline. Prioritize high probability leads, meaning if you have a really hot lead, give it to the best guy. Don't just hand out leads to like your friend or somebody you like. You need to give it to the guy who's at the top of the board no matter what. Route accordingly to top producers. Always get upsells. Add back-end offers that extend the total contract value, TCV, without new ad spend. That's huge. That'll double your business by itself right there, is what you consider the upsell. Scaling isn't more. Scaling is tighter, cleaner, and faster. That's how you dominate and not create chaos. So, the sales machine checklist. It's a little small here, but here is your exact blueprint. You need your clear offer. You need your inbound lead flow / lead magnet. You need a fire CRM, which I actually have a CRM and sales company that I can drop in the link below. It's called Exarev. You also need really good scripts. And then, of course, you need trained closers. But more than just trained closers, you need all of your salespeople trained, your setters and your closers. They can always get better. They can always get better. You also need a sales manager, somebody who's taking a very ownership level type of responsibility in your culture and your sales team. Also, you need daily, weekly, and monthly KPIs. You need a follow-up system. So you need to train your people to follow up, and then you need the system to back your people up. And then, of course, you need a scalable comp plan. The comp plan is absolutely huge. It changes between different business models, which is why I didn't really put it into this training. But your comp plan will make or break the entire thing. So your sales managers and your leaders need to make a bonus based off of the performance of the team, and then so does your sales reps. So just like the sales reps have a target, your sales managers need to have a target. And when they exceed the target, they need to be rewarded versus just the same number. Otherwise, there's no reason for them to outperform last month. So if one single piece is missing, your machine will break, And if it's all dialed in, you're going to scale so fast. You're going to need a seatbelt and you're going to have to buckle up because you're not going to be able to handle so much growth. So here's the final punch. Sales isn't just about closing deals. It's about building a system that doesn't sleep, a machine that literally prints money on command. This is how I scaled to $27 million in the last sales team that I built. And this is how you can build a sales machine that runs with or without you. So let's get it going.